Hey, Think Realty, thanks so much for joining us today and being a viewer or a listener on the podcast. It's our privilege to be able to host you. And my name is Eddie Wilson, the founder of Think Realty. I founded this in 2013 as a third generation real estate investor. The table talk that I got to hear from my grandpa and my dad, I get to pass on to you now, having my own real estate empire and being able to pass on that opportunity to you guys. And so I bring great people to the table to talk about great roadmaps and ideas and structures to help you be a better real estate investor. And today is no exception. I've got a great guest here in just a second, but I want to say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor, which is CV3 Financial Services. When you're taking on a new real estate investment project, having a trusted lender is key. Count on CV3 for your fix and flip, rental, cash out, or rate and term refi needs. Visit cv3financial.com/think realty, cv3financial.com/think realty. My guest today is actually no stranger to Think Realty. He used to speak at a ton of our different events across the nation, as well as been in our magazine and podcast. Brent, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here and share.
Yeah, very good. So you're now pretty much my neighbor. I mean, I moved to Northeast Florida, and you're just south of me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in actually a town called Port Orange, Florida, about an hour east of Orlando. We bump right up next to like Daytona Beach. So
Right.
yeah, we're very, very close now, Eddie.
We're not far at all. We need to get together sometime. Very
Absolutely.
good. Well, let's jump into the topic today. And listeners, that you guys have heard me talk about this concept because what Brent does is something that I use, right? Like I am again, third generation real estate investor, but also my family has been heavily involved in banking. And one of the things that have been interesting in watching kind of the evolution of the bank that my family has been involved with was when there was a massive downturn in 2008 to 2010. They were not beholden to a lot of the FDIC issues where their capital dried up because my grandfather and also the president of that bank had written policies, very specific insurance policies on executives in that bank, and it became the backbone of the lending program of that bank. So while other banks were suffering, they actually had some massive success. It's pretty much close to what we are going to talk about today and how they did it. And it's something that I've been doing for now multiple years. I use what's called an infinite banking account, or what I typically call a family bank. It's creating a family bank for my family, used by people like the Rockefellers and others. And Brent, I know you are so well versed in this. You've traveled the nation for years teaching it. And I want you to just give a brief overview of what infinite banking is to the listeners today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, so the banking concept, the infinite banking concept, it was actually driven by a guy named R. Nelson Nash. And actually, R. Nelson Nash wrote this book, Becoming Your Own Banker. Now, Nelson was my mentor, and he's actually wrote a couple other books as well. But Nelson passed away about 5 years ago, back in March of 2019 at the age of 87 years old. And so that book, Becoming Your Own Banker, completely changed my financial life. So just to give you a quick history, I first learned about this concept because I was in a conference. My past career is just like was a chiropractor. I'm still a chiropractor. I no longer practice anymore. I own clinics in Kansas City, and I was at a chiropractic conference and I heard somebody talk about this banking concept, and I was like, man, that looks really, really good, but it seems too good to be true, right? I'm sure you've seen things like that. So after I heard this information, I went back home, went back to my normal life and did nothing. So then I go back to another chiropractic conference about 2 years later, and about 10 or 12 of my colleagues that were at the previous conference are now at this conference. And the only difference between them and me is they actually implemented the process that they heard back 2 years earlier in 2006. So they were going on and on telling me about like how things were going in their financial life, how they were able to pay off their debt, how they were able to invest in real estate projects, all by keeping money in their family. They were recycling and they were recapturing the money, all without changing their cash flow. They didn't have to work any harder. They didn't take any additional risk or lose control of their money. They just added one step in their process, and that was through this method, becoming your own banker. So now you're keeping control of your own money, right? And so how do we do that? How is the concept used? Well, kind of like what you said about it, Eddie, is it's not brand new, right? So like it's not Nelson Nash that wrote this book that invented it. It's been around for over 200 years. Like if you research the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, Morgan Stanleys, the Barclays, this is what they did to build, keep, and create wealth. It's actually it's actually how Walt Disney was able to start Disney World, Ray Kroc and McDonald's, Pampered Chef before Warren Buffett bought Pampered Chef. So the concept has been around for over 200 years. But the problem is that nobody teaches us the concept. They don't teach it to us. And normally the places that we do get a little bit of a snapshot on it or hear a little bit about it, it's just expressed in a way that's so complicated that people don't want to take the time and figure out complicated crap. For example, the concept that we teach, the banking concept, is actually in a book by Robert Kiyosaki. And I know you know, Eddie, who Robert Kiyosaki is. He's actually famous for the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but he also wrote another book called Second Chance. And in that book, what Robert Kiyosaki talks about is this concept that I teach, right? But again, he makes it a little difficult to understand. And also another individual wrote a book named Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money, Master the Game. In chapter 5.4 of that book, Tony talks about exactly what we teach. So it's not on trial. It's not being tested. It's been around for over 200 years, but it's not what we've been taught to do in our financial life. It's not what our parents taught us, our grandparents. It's not what our friends, colleagues are doing with money. It's not what our financial planner is telling us, our CPA or accountant, because they simply just don't know about the concept.
So talk about the concept a little more. So it's leveraging and using whole life policies, but it's typically different than what most people understand a whole life policy to be. And explain how you actually set up a bank, like a family bank account with a whole life policy.
Yeah, great point, Eddie. And so the thing is that you're absolutely right. This is a whole life insurance policy. This is the vehicle that we're using in this concept. Now, I know because we just mentioned the word whole life insurance, probably half of the audience tuned out, or they're saying, well, I'm going to go over and walk the dog and burp the baby. And I'm just going to pay attention halfway.
They're going to go back and listen to Dave Ramsey all over again.
Right. Because they're thinking this is about life insurance. Well, yes, the product is life insurance, but keep in mind, this is not the life insurance policy that you are going to go out and buy from your brother-in-law that sells life insurance. We all have a brother-in-law that sells life insurance. No. This is not that type of policy. This is a specifically designed, specially engineered whole life insurance policy that is in a mutual company that is designed for high immediate cash value. One more time on that, high immediate cash value. And here's what I mean. If I put money into that policy, I'm immediately able to use the cash value in the policy. And when I say immediately, is the thing I mean is within 30 days. So when I put money into a policy, I immediately use that money. So the way the policy is designed is, yes, it has yes, it's an insurance policy, so it has a death benefit, but we aren't focusing on death benefit, Eddie. Yes, there's a death benefit there, but our focus is the cash in the policy. Because if I solve your need for finance and cash, you'll have as much death benefit or more death benefit than you can ever imagine. So to give you a big picture of exactly what we're doing is the client, you are going to decide how much money do you want to put into that policy? Now, it could be a small amount. It could be $100 a month. It could be a $500,000 a month. You decide the amount of money that you want to put in the policy and how often that you want to put it in, whether it's monthly, quarterly, twice a year, or annually. And when you put that money into the policy, it will buy you X amount of death benefit based on your age and your health. Now, I can't determine what that death benefit is, but remember, we're designing the policy for cash value early on. Death benefit will catch up later. And again, it's because the death benefit part will become more important to you as the older you get and the closer it comes time to your graduation date. I like to say graduate instead of death, die, or pass. All right. I say graduation. But yes, there's always a death benefit component to it. But right now we're going to solve the need for finance and cash. So to give you an example, and I personally have over 28 of these policies. I put in over $1 million a year in my own policy premium, and I buy at least one policy every 1 to 2 years. And again, maybe for another call, I'll tell you why so many policies, but the thing I'm doing is I'm putting money into that policy, and that money is going into the policy with after-tax dollars. And I know what people are thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. I want to get as much of my money, tax-free. I want to save as much taxes as possible. Well, I get it because that's what we've been taught. But remember, as long as we can get your money into a tax-free environment, in other words, so like pay tax on our money one time only, get that money into a tax-free environment where now it has an internal guaranteed growth and it's growing tax-free and the government is completely out of your hair. How cool would that be? And you're able to use the cash value in the money. So just for your listeners, Eddie, most of them being in the real estate world, whether they're buying, like as far as buy and holds, fix and flips, long-term, short-term rentals, or even lenders, which is what I do. I lend a lot of money out with real estate as collateral. The thing I do is I put my money into the policy first, and then I go get the money out of the policy. Now, keep in mind, I don't get my money out of the policy ever. What I do is I put my policy up for collateral, and I take a loan from the general fund of the insurance company, which is another great thing because I am now taking a loan from the general fund of the insurance company. So that means that I never, ever touch my principal that's in the policy. So all that money is continuing to grow in that tax-free environment, and I'm using the money at the same time. And a key component to this is to be able to build, keep, and create wealth through your own debts, expenses, and investments that you already have. And it's all the control factor. It's all about you being in control of your own money because you are the banker in your life. Let me give you a quick example. Like if you go to a conventional bank to borrow money, who's in control? Not you. The bank is in control. The bank is dictating the terms of what's going on in that loan. And also the bankers, the profit holders and the shareholders of the bank are making all the profits and the dividends on the money that you are like generating that transaction with. When you're doing it in your own banking system, i.e. this whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, the key word here is mutual. There are no shareholders or stockholders. You own the policy contract, not the insurance company. You own the policy contract. So everything in that contract is under your control. See, the insurance companies, Eddie, are not federally regulated, which is another great thing. They're state regulated. And the insurance companies go by something called Austrian economics, where $1 actually protects $1. See, a conventional bank can loan $8, $10, or $12 for every dollar they have on hand. It's like fiat money. It doesn't exist. If everybody ran to the bank today to get all their money out, you would get 7 or 8 cents out of every dollar. All that 250,000 FDIC insured bullcrap would be out the window. They just physically don't have the money to give you. An insurance company cannot do that. That dollar has to protect that dollar. And even furthermore, Eddie, nobody in your state, our state, or any state in this country has ever lost money in a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. It's never happened because in your contract, you have a guaranteed growth rate of that's going on inside your policy. So you see every one of your numbers of what the growth is going to be on your money before you ever sign, accept, and pay for your policy. So all we're really doing, Eddie, is we're adding one step to our financial life. That's it. Everything that you're doing and all of your listeners are doing in the real estate world, that I'm doing in the lending world, or even owning real estate, is I'm just simply adding one additional step. I'm not going to change anything I'm doing. I'm adding one step. And let me just tell you, when you are in control of your money, when that money is staying within your family in a closed system, there's no money being leaked out to other people. You are keeping all of that money in the family. And again, I know I'm going back to this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, which isn't my book, by the way. You know, I mean, I bought this book. And so like with you guys can go buy this book on Amazon or wherever, Becoming Your Own Banker. But on page 70 in this book, I could do a half a day seminar on page 70 in this book. And on page 70 in this book, Nelson Nash absolutely 100% proves that everything you use money for, everything that you buy with money, all your debts, your expenses, products, services, investments, whatever it is you're using money for, when you apply these principles and this concept, you're recycling and recapturing that money. Mm-hmm. That money stays in your family. And when I say recycle and recapture, that means all that money comes back to you. That stays in your family. So you're getting, Eddie, the money back for any purchase that you're making. Not only do you buy the asset, for example, a car, you not only get the car, but you also keep the money. And I have a full 90-minute presentation on my website that goes into the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, I love, you always used to use this illustration of how to get started. You'd always say something to the effect of, if you could have enough cash to go buy a car, instead of buying the car, you buy a policy, borrow the money against the policy, leave, as leverage, go buy the car, and then sit there and make your monthly payments to yourself versus making the payments to a bank on your car. And I always loved that illustration because it was such a simple way that when people were first getting started, and then you'd actually show it out on a chart. Like, let me show you how this actually plays out, right? Because in the end, you're essentially just paying yourself back the money for the car, essentially paying back the loan against that policy, which then just recaptures, recycles. And then the great part is then in these policies, then they have a yield to them. So you're actually making money multiple times on your money, and you're not actually giving it to a bank, which to me, I think is the brilliance of this, and why, my family has been doing this for a long period of time. And it exponentially increases the ability to gain wealth. People don't really realize how much using the conventional banking space actually pulls from your wealth. And it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Like, it's just these small fees that just continue to pile up. You don't realize that over time you're losing 20, 30, 40% of your money, right? Whereas like you're recapturing your money over and over again, and you're making money on that money multiple times. Then there's all the strategies you talk about, which is then lending that money and actually arbitraging and making more money on the money that's already making money. It's a pretty amazing thing. And I know we're out of time, and I knew we would be. I knew we wouldn't get very far in this, but I assume you've at least piqued the interest of everybody listening. So how can they find out more? I know you talked about this webinar or presentation. How can they get there and see this?
Yeah, well, yeah, great. Yep. And actually, thanks for that, Eddie. So okay. So like the best thing to do is go to our website, www.themoneymultiplier.com. So the word moneymultiplier.com, themoneymultiplier.com. So there's a tab on there and it says Watch Brent Now. And that's my full 90+ minute presentation, which includes what you were talking about, Eddie, is getting all the money back for your car. My presentation has not changed since I first started teaching this, which was in March of 2012. So a little over 12 years, my presentation stays the same. Obviously, when I'm speaking to a group of real estate investors, I may change up a couple of the example compared to chiropractors, dentists, orthodontists, network marketers, or whatever group it is, but the core, the meat and potatoes stays the same. Also, my email is my first name, Brent, B-R-E-N-T, Brent at themoneymultiplier.com. And then I actually wrote a book a few years back called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, okay? And I wrote this book with Chris Naugle. A lot of you guys in the real estate world, and I know you know Chris Naugle, Eddie, but he's had a couple shows on TV, one on House Hunters, another one on HGTV called Risky Builders. But anyway, Chris and I wrote this book together. Chris was my client, and it's kind of like funny. I know we're out of time, but actually Chris came to me from another client. There was another real estate investor, and so this client told Chris about what he was doing working with me, and Chris said, there's no way you can do that. Now, Chris was a financial advisor for New York Life for 16 years, and Chris was on a mission to prove to his friend, which was my client, that I was scamming him and cheating him. And now look, Chris and I write a book together, and Chris teaches this concept with me on our team, and the student has become the teacher. But actually, if you send me an email, Brent at themoneymultiplier.com, I will send you the ebook version of this, mapping out the millionaire mystery. But that's the best way to get a hold of us. The thing, you can Google my name, Kesler with one S. You'll see tons of stuff out there, plan designs, case studies, success stories, testimonials, and then hopefully, Eddie, one day either myself or my daughter or someone on our team will get the privilege to speak on your stage again, and we'll share again with your listeners and your audience. But I would just say what you're doing for the community of real estate, and I've watched you for a long time, and I applaud you for helping all of the people that you're helping in this real estate world and community. And I see messages all the time that come from clients of mine, or mutual clients that we both have, and you're just doing a world of good for them. They love the content that you are providing them. So I just wanted to throw kudos out to Think Realty for that, because I talk on a lot of stages, and not everybody is at that class that you are. So I could count on one hand, maybe a hand and a half, of the people that are at that level.
I appreciate it, Brent. Thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate everything you do as well.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Make sure you guys go to themoneymultiplier.com, check out what Brent is talking about. To me, if you're investing in real estate and you're not using this vehicle, you're only making a portion of what you could make. If you understood this and you did it like I do, you would understand that there's so much money, more money to be made than what you're currently making. Let me say one more quick thank you to our podcast sponsor, which is CV3 Financial Services. When you're taking a new real estate investment project on, having a trusted lender is key. Count on CV3 for your fix and flip, rental, cash out, or rate and term refi needs. Visit cv3financial.com/thinkrealty, cv3financial.com/thinkrealty. We also do shows all around the nation. This year, we were already in Phoenix, but we're also coming to Orlando on September 12th and 13th. Don't miss your chance to learn, network, and make deals with some of the biggest names in real estate investing. For a limited time, you can receive a buy one, get one deal on tickets if you register for 2 tickets at thinkrealty.com and you use the code podcast, all capital letters podcast. It'll give you a buy one, get one free, and we would love to see you in Orlando. You can go to thinkrealty.com/Orlando to get there directly. And I'll be there myself. I'll bring a lot of my real estate investor friends with me. I'll bring capital to the room. I'll bring a ton of education. We'll have a great time in Orlando. Stay the weekend, go to Disney, whatever else, but make sure you come out and check us out on September 12th and 13th in Orlando. We hope to see you there. If you haven't already gone to the local Barnes & Noble and picked up your latest Think Realty magazine, make sure you do it, and we'll talk to you guys soon.